Good sound documentation is an important part of properly assisting residents with medication. During this video, you are going to learn how to document when a med is given, as well as add medications to a medication assistance record. You're going to learn about documenting PRN and narcotic medications as well. You're also going to learn some important points about narrative charting so that you can appropriately chart should a resident have an unusual response to a medication or have a special care need.
The Medication Assistance Record, sometimes called a Medication Administration Record, or MAR, is one of the most important pieces of documentation related to medication management. The MAR serves as a tool for us to record every time we assist a resident with their medication. Therefore, every medication your resident takes must be documented on the MAR. While designs may vary, what you see here is a fairly typical medication assistance record. At the top of the form is a place to indicate the month and the year, as each MAR is intended to be used for 1 month. At the bottom of the MAR are places to indicate the resident's name, their room number, any allergies that they may have, the name of their pharmacy and physician, as well as a place for each staff member that uses this particular MAR to list their name, signature, and initials. This only has to be done once each month on the MAR, as it is a way to reference the initials that are placed on the MAR with each individual staff member. It is not necessary to sign your full name to the MAR every time you use it. In the body of the form is a listing of each medication that the resident takes. You can see there is a place to list the medication, the strength, the dose, the route, and any further instructions. All of this information should match exactly what is found in the physician's order and on the medication label. Next to that is a column for the times of day that the medication is to be taken. You can see that for each medication, there are enough spaces to list up to 4 times of day, as that is typically the maximum number of doses a person would take of any particular medication in 1 day. Then the rest of the form consists of columns or small boxes where you will place your initials next to the medication each time it is given. When adding a new medication to the MAR, you will begin by finding the next blank medication row that is available. You will list the medication name, strength, dose, the route, frequency, and any further instructions provided in the physician's order. Again, be sure you are working directly from the written physician's order and that you are verifying that information according to the medication container's label as well. The medication order, label, and MAR must match exactly. Once you have listed that information in the first box, you will then proceed to fill in the appropriate times of day that the medication will be given. Unless the physician provides specific instructions for an exact time of day, We will typically give medications around mealtime. So a once-a-day dose would be given in the morning, twice a day would typically be breakfast and dinner, and 3 times a day would typically be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Again, be sure the physician has not listed an exact time of day that he or she wants the medication given. And if you have any questions or are unsure, speak with your pharmacy. Now, as we already discussed, the MAR contains boxes for each day of the month. But if you're entering a medication to the MAR after the month has already began, you will need to indicate where those initials should begin. So in this example, when we are entering the aspirin onto this MAR, if it is the 8th day of the month that we will begin giving the aspirin, we want to put an X or a line through the first 7 days of the month, indicating that this is a new medication order that started on the 8th. Once you have the MAR set up with all of your residents' medications, it can now serve as a template for you to use each day when passing medications to your residents. In this example, as we were preparing medications for the morning dose, we would turn to Jane's MAR in our medication book, and we would see that she is to take both her Lasix and her aspirin at the 8 a.m. dosing time. We would pour those medications into a medication container and initial the MAR. We would then take the medications to Jane and observe that she took them properly. Now check with your facility policy. In some facilities, it is the policy to pour the medication, give it to the resident, and then go back and sign the MAR. Whereas in other facilities, the MAR is initialed as you pour the medication, and then if for some reason the resident didn't take it, you would go back and circle your initials and document further on the back page of the MAR the reason that the resident didn't take the medication. The benefit of initialing the MAR as you pour the medication is it serves as a placeholder, allowing you to go back and see which medications you've already poured. But again, policies will vary from one facility to another, so be sure to check with your supervisor. If for some reason a resident doesn't take their medication at the prescribed time, you will initial in the box, circle your initials, and then turn to the back of the MAR to document the reason that the dose was missed and to document any communications that you had with the resident's physician. Circling your initials on the front of the MAR is a way of flagging or alerting other staff members that for some reason a dose was missed. And it is, of course, critically important that you fully document the reason that the dose was missed and that you followed up with the resident's physician on the back of the MAR. A PRN record is similar to a MAR in that it is a way for you to document each time you give a resident one of their medications. However, because a PRN medication is not necessarily given at the same time every day, but rather it is given to the resident as they need it, a PRN record does not typically have columns or rows for each time of day and each day of the month. Rather, when using a PRN record, each time you assist the resident with their medication, you will document the date, time, name of the medication, the dose, and the reason that it was given. All of this, of course, should match the instructions in the physician's order. What's critically important is that after giving a PRN medication, you will go back and ensure that it worked. In other words, you will go back and check on your resident to see if the medication was effective. If you had given a resident some Tylenol for a headache, you would go back about a half hour later and see if their headache had been relieved. You would then document on the PRN form the time and the resident's response to the medication. It is best to use quotes on this part of the form, documenting exactly what the resident told you. So if when you went and checked on Jane, she told you her head feels better, you would put on the form, Jane stated, and then quotes, "My head feels better." In addition to the forms that we've already discussed, a good med-aid needs to be familiar with some documentation basics. The first and foremost rule of documentation in any assisted living facility is if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done. In other words, you need to document all aspects of care provided according to your state regulations and facility policies. It's not enough to say you gave a medication to a resident if you didn't document that it was given. It's not enough to say you called the physician for instructions if you didn't document the conversation. Secondly, your documentation always needs to be thorough and complete. Never leave your documentation unfinished, and always complete all of your notes. This also means that if you document a problem, you need to document your follow-up. For example, if you document that a medication was missed, you need to document that you reported it to the physician and you followed his instructions. As with other types of documentation, you should follow the basic rule that you only document what you see or what you heard. You never document your assumptions. So for example, if a resident refuses to take a medication, you wouldn't document, "Mary was in a bad mood today and refused her meds." Rather, you would document exactly what the resident told you when they refused to take the medications. Make sure your documentation is always neat and legible. Now that one sounds simple, but we all know there have been many times we've opened a resident's chart and been unable to read the notes of a fellow staff member. So make sure that you're not being that person. Make sure that your documentation notes are neat and easy to read. Finally, it's important to understand what to do if you make an error in your documentation. You never want to use whiteout or in any way obliterate your notes. Rather, if you make a mistake, simply put one line through the error, write the word error above it, and put your initials. You can then go on to complete the corrected note. This is a way of showing someone I made a mistake, but I've corrected it. If you ever use whiteout or obliterate a note, it could be misconstrued as falsifying a documentation.
Correct use of terminology and appropriate documentation is important. In your workbook that accompanies this video, you will have an opportunity to practice your skills.